Hello and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for anyone who uses their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a journalist, copywriter and content producer and the founder of Rachel's List. And I'm joined today by the lovely Lynn Testoni. Hi, Lynn.
Hi again, Rach. It's lovely to see you even via Zoom. And hello to all our lovely listeners. We've been doing really well lately. There's more and more of you.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome. So I'm a journalist and a content producer, and today's episode is all about content.
It is, and we are very, very excited to have a great guest on today. Totally excited. Claire Bradley, Head of Content at Suddenly, and she's going to talk to us about all things content, funnily enough, from kind of the agency side of things. And I guess for those of you who aren't aware of Suddenly, it's one of the many content offshoots of News Corp. And I'm just going to do a little bio for Claire. She has had quite an interesting career journey. She's worked in publishing for around 20 years and actually started out as an editorial coordinator, which, as we all know, is a great way to get a grounding in every area of a print publication because you basically do everything. And Claire also specialised in subbing before moving into editor roles, and she was publisher of the homes category. So she oversaw Vogue Living, Inside Out and Country Style before her move to Suddenly. And Claire is now rocking the content world and has a lot to say about it and a lot of interesting things to tell journos who may be moving in that direction or who you might already have a foot in both camps, but this is going to be a really interesting chat. So welcome to The Content Bite, Claire. It's so great to have you on the podcast at last.
Hi, ladies. I'm super excited to be here. So awesome. Nice to see both of you, as you said, Lynn, via Zoom, but, hear from you guys as well.
This is our new normal, Zoom. No one's ever going to catch up anymore. It'll just all be three-way conversations.
I can't decide how I feel about that. In some ways, I'm super pleased about it. And then in others, I'm like, oh, no.
Me too, but I'm the eternal introvert. I like my home space and I don't actually really care if I don't meet anybody in person. No, I do. I take that back.
No, you know what I do? I've realised I've totally lent into the homebody scenario. If you could just remove my young child every now and again, that'd be brilliant.
Yes.
I think we all want to do
about
that.
The home.
If you figure out how to do that, can you let me know?
Totally will.
Because Claire, Rach and I, of course, know you really well because we've all been in the mag industry for years, and yet all our careers have sort of gone into more of the digital content direction. And yours has been in content for ages now. What do you love about working in that space?
Oh, look, at the end of the day, I still really love, I love the framework of kind of content in that I love I love deadlines. I like finishing something. I like moving things. So I quite like the process of this area of creation and creativity because it's quite defined. And then in the role that I've worked in for the last probably 10 years, I've really loved working with lots of other creatives. So I've worked with lots of other journalists and art directors. So that's what I love about, content and in that kind of area. And then the content marketing space I work in now, I really like the fact that it is so connected to a customer or a consumer in a really direct way.
Oh, that's nice, yeah. You've always been a bit of a team person. I can vouch for that, having been a team member of yours.
How different is it? How different is it working like on the magazine side, creating obviously content there as well, but more for print as opposed to creating it for digital? Is it quite, obviously there's great differences because you bring in the client side of things, but in terms of the actual content itself?
So I genuinely, if I looked at what I like about creating content, I think what I learned really early on is that I actually, I started as a sub, which is obviously working on other people's copy. And then while I, over lots of time, over the years, I have written stuff and I have created stuff myself, I'm actually a much better editor than a content creator. And so I really like to focus on what the purpose of the piece of content is. And so for me, it actually doesn't matter what kind of channel we're in or what kind of piece of content it is. What is exciting for me is that actually what's the purpose of it? So what are we trying to do? What are we trying to help someone feel? So really it doesn't matter if you're telling that in a video or an article piece or an illustration. actually what I do at the moment, I work in all of those areas. So it's while we are in digital, actually the core purpose or the core piece of content is kind of agnostic.
So I think it'll be really interesting to hear about how you have sort of gotten to this point.
Yeah, look, I would say, it's all about flexibility. Like I started in the industry as working as an assisting a stylist, and I went to uni to be an art teacher. So I certainly began in the more that kind of area of creativity. And I was an art director. Ultimately, she was I think she was disappointed that I ended up in the word space than in the images space. We'll have to deal with that for all the years to come. But yeah, so I started as assisting as a stylist. And then, like I said, I stepped into kind of working as an editorial coordinator, got a bit of a sense of what all the areas did. And look, I'm very detail focused. So while I am creative, I like it to be within a framework that I can be successful in. So I loved subbing because I love the attention to detail. And I did love just the crafting of language. Like I do love that, and I still love that. And while actually in my job day to day, I probably shouldn't be in the detail of that, I find it very hard not to still get right down into the detail of nerdy punctuation. So I worked my way up through the subbing teams, and then, I don't know, I think that they're often, from an editor perspective, often people end up as an editor through two different channels, which is often through the kind of subbing and production side of things, because you get a really good sense of not getting so caught up in the creative space that you don't deliver on a thing. Like an editor does need to be able to deliver a product. And then often people come through either a kind of beauty or fashion space because they're kind of connected to a client and the advertising side of things. So I think I took a pretty normal path through that kind of subbing space. I really genuinely only ever wanted, like my absolute goal always was to be a deputy editor, because I really love being a right-hand man. I love delivering for someone else. I'm not super excited about being the one at the front of something. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm really, really fine to just be someone else's person who delivers, get shit done. I love that. And so, yeah, I don't know, my editor at the time took a maternity leave, and I realised I was so in the detail of it that I thought, well, actually, I might as well just give it a go. So, yeah, so I ended up in the editor space, and I think that's when I really did get a bit of a sense of really understanding, being able to level up out of the actual creation of the thing and being able to understand purpose and strategy. And that's definitely the thing that drives me now. Like understanding why we're doing something and why a piece of content is so important and its purpose in kind of an ecosystem of content.
Do you think that's sometimes more explicit or more carefully thought out when in the content space compared to, say, journalism and magazines? People in magazines might go on just thinking it's all about pretty images, but there's a much clearer target and aim in content marketing.
Yeah, look, I think there really is. Like, I think that, one of the reasons I did move into this space, and sorry, I needed to do a quicker version of roundup of my career, is that I ended up in this editorial space where it was, as a publisher, you end up being quite business driven and strategic. And so when you're trying to meld like your own brand, say at that point I was sort of Inside Out and those Homes titles, then you're obviously working with lots of clients and you're trying to facilitate, a profitable business, which is just the reality for all of us. And I sort of ended up in this space where I had sort of two masters. I had my own brand to care for, but then I was working with clients and making sure that I was working with their customer. And it felt like moving into the content marketing space, it actually freed me up to just talk directly to the audience or the consumer or customer that I was actually targeting. And I could have like a more transparent conversation with them, which I guess what comes with that though is that because I work directly for a client as opposed to kind of my own brand in an editorial space, is there are some pretty real targets on that, right? We say we're going to deliver something and we have to deliver it, and there needs to be some, there is conversation around how successful something is. So
some commercial metrics, which that's a big thing for some journalists who've never really looked at that, because you as a publisher had a lot more awareness of that. But for
visibility,
the average writer.
Yeah, totally. And so, I guess that's what I'd say is part of what, I do at Suddenly is I look after content. So I look after all of the deliverable for the actual output of the pieces of content. But there's a huge part of our business that looks to strategy and actually understands what metrics look like and what a client needs from us. So yeah, I'm really clear that while I have a good background in business understanding, which is totally an area I never thought I would have, while I have that background, I've still ended up in an area where I need that visibility from a business perspective, but I still care most about what we're doing and how we talk to an audience or a reader, audience, viewer. I still care about that human connection, and that's the bit that's actually always going to drive me.
So what's your typical day look like? Well, I guess it's a bit hard at the moment.
This is a bit of one, it's an odd time, obviously, because it used to be that I would go into the office, but it doesn't look like that anymore. So I'm at home, and I basically, to be honest, there is a lot of meetings. I wish it were. I wish it was something other than that, but it's not. It looks just a lot like me doing back-to-back meetings at the moment. But that's because I'm really fortunate to work with lots of areas of business. So I've got a full kind of production area of video, and we've got producers and editors and all of that. And then we've got kind of an editorial section, which is lots of writers. We've got a design department as well. And when we've got one very big client, obviously, which is Woolworths, who is a huge part of our business, and just a very, very lucky to work with such an incredible business. And then we have lots of other businesses we work for in different capacities. And so to make sure that everybody is getting what they need, I do a lot of plate spinning at the moment, as opposed to I kind of am across the top of a lot of things instead of being down and in the detail. And to be really honest, that's not my natural area. I quite like to be right in things to understand what's going on. And as a professional person, I need to figure out actually how to not get right down to the weeds. And I guess that's a bit of the creative stuff, right? Like you want to be in the creative making bit and really be in the detail. And yeah, so I guess, that'd be one of those things that I would love to free up my diary a little bit to be in a bit more of the creativity, but just at the moment, it's not really an option.
We know how busy you are because we can definitely hear your phone being.
I'm trying to work out how to turn it off.
I think you're late for a meeting.
My phone is off, but because it's connected to my iMessage, it's still coming through.
I know. I just turned mine off too because mine was binging as well. So
literally my phone is off, but I just need to work out how to turn off iMessage.
It's all so annoying, isn't it? All the things you have to turn off. We don't realise how many things are like.
It's too connected, right? It also happens to be my niece and nephew though, so I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, well, that's good. That's important.
Yeah. Also, I do need to be available for the nanny because my child has had an accident today. So you know what? That's what it looks like, right? It looks like the combination of all those things.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so true. You just never want to. That's why when Charlie was really little, this is so weird. I know this will sound so weird, but I was really terrified to go for a swim and do laps. Because I thought that half an hour that I'm in the pool, what if something happens? And and my phone's in a locker. So if something happened just by chance and I wasn't contactable in that time or that hour or whenever I was in the pool, I just actually really avoided swimming. So bad. Maybe I have a higher level of paranoia than other parents.
Well, look, I'm impressed because I'm not down to that level of detail.
I used to love the swim because my phone wasn't there.
Yeah, I needed to get to that point.
I still haven't worked out how to turn that off, so I apologise. I just hopefully everyone will just go away.
Oh, look, it's life, isn't it? That's our life. Look, I wanted to just really ask you, because I think there are so many journos out there who are probably thinking, I want to get into content marketing. We're actually running at Rachel's List a content marketing mini masterclass with Rob Johnson from Engaged Media. So many of our journos have joined that, which is a reflection to me of how many people really want to get into that space, feel like it's going to be another really great income stream for them. Yep. But what do you think that a lot of journos perhaps don't understand or could do better at understanding that agency-client relationship in order to get that work and that sort of thing? What is there to understand about all that?
look, as I said, I think that it's a really clear understanding of what the brief is, and if you're unsure of that, clarifying it.
Yes.
It's really understanding the actual purpose of that piece of content. And in other areas of content creation, you know, whether it's editorial or your own, like whatever, there's probably a little bit more flex of where a story might go and a bit more ability to meander. And once you go down the path that you kind of might see an offshoot of like, oh, this is great, this story could go here. In the content marketing world, sometimes that's not an option. Sometimes we need to stick to the thing we've guaranteed to the client because that's what the client signed off. Yeah. And, you know, that's crushing for me sometimes when someone will file a piece of content and what they've done, you know, straight up is possibly better than what I've commissioned. It doesn't tick the same box. So just some awareness of the fact that it is a bit more structured, and that if you do want to go down a different path, either sense check it against what the brief was and what its purpose was, and maybe just ensure that the person who's briefing you has actually given you that shares with you what the end goal is, as opposed to just go with it, or just go back with a top line before you spend too much time, because, you know, as a freelancer, it's wasted money to go down a path that is not going to be able to, you know, actually get there in the end. So maybe it's a check-in of, hey, look, I think this is an opportunity to make this story better. Is it going to work? Because I do think that is, it's just really important to make sure that at the end of the day you can use it and we're not wasting people's time.
Yeah. I think that is such an important point, because I think it can be quite the learning curve from going from a feature writer, you know, print journo, kind of
even a digital writer, editorially.
It can be a really hard adjustment to then
videos, everything, like literally in every area of creativity, design, like literally every single path you go down. Like we commission illustrations, and so, you know, that is a truly creative process. And, you know, the truth is that I'm often the person who has to have just a totally hard conversation and go, it's beautiful and I love what you've done, it's just not right.
And that's all about killing your darlings, I suppose.
It is, and it's so sad. I hate to think of the pile of dead darlings for me. Honestly, like I just crush people and I feel terrible. And so, look, for me, it's just on me to make sure that I'm communicating the right thing at the beginning, which allows people to make good creative decisions.
I mean, I don't know, Lynn, what do you think about this? We both do such a mixture of, you know, content work, print work, you know, compared to before, like when I first started out, it was only magazines. And I really feel like if you want to, for me personally, if I want to pay my bills, I can't be too much of a purist these days. I have to just, you know, take the writing work that I can get and go in that direction. Do you think that that's something that, you know, a lot of us still struggle with, or do you think...
I actually think that most people have let go of being purist about it, but I do think a lot of journalists are scared about the business side of content. Yeah. Like some journalists, I mean, we all know, have a real fear of numbers and number crunching, and maybe even the jargon, the terminology. Do you find that, Claire?
Do you mean as
like a call to action?
Oh, right. Okay.
That sort of stuff, or lead generation, those sort of common terms that you might use all the time, and you're probably used to them. But maybe a journalist who's a step or two away from that publisher level may not know. Do you find that's a tricky?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think you are probably right. We probably have two ways that we work with journalists in this space. So
yep.
We sort of either have projects where we commission out kind of clear, clean assets, which is not necessarily about creating all that call to action framework around it. And then we might have a project manager internally who is also a content creator who then applies all the right lenses so that we have some commonality and we have the right stuff. So, and then the people that we probably expect for them to understand all that terminology is probably a different kind of content creator or contributor. And we do have a balance of internal and external. So we've got some really incredible team members on our team who are more generalists, and they are kind of incredible content creators that can run in a kind of, they're kind of, you know, great with social, great with a bit of SEO and a bit of kind of digital optimizing. And then you've got people who can tell a great story. So we've got a kind of a little team of generalists who work alongside each other. And then we absolutely are never going to be a business that is able to have really, well, certainly not in the very short term, really clear defined areas of speciality. So we absolutely need, we talk a lot about our talent bench of the amazing freelancers that we need to be able to activate when we have clients who specialize in specific areas. So whether it's finance or travel or whatever different area, we know that we're never going to be all things to all people, and we need to activate the right people at the right time.
So is that when you use freelancers, is more of those specialist areas to get that industry knowledge or skills?
Yeah, we still have a lot of generalists we use as well. Like we use a lot of freelancers. So, you know, we've got a very big group of people that we work on, from design and in every area of what we do, producers, everyone. We use a lot. Because we do have a really, even for clients that we deal with in an ongoing basis, even their projects are really diverse. And in some areas, it's like a kind of video, it's like a video execution in one direction. And then the next time we're working with them in a kind of retainer space, it's a much more kind of PR driven piece of content. And it's that they're two very different people who create that content. So I guess, you know, my message is that there is actually room. We are constantly looking for the right person for the right job. And so regardless of what the industry looks like, we will continue to do that, because every client brief is different. Every job is different, and it's up to me to make sure that we have contact with all the right people to onboard.
And are you sometimes also with your clients in this space also taking them in new directions? So that's the benefit of an agency like Suddenly, is that you might be doing video for one client and then another client wants to move into video, and you can take them in on that journey. Is that part of what you do?
We work with lots of different clients in lots of different capacities. You know, for some people we are a production agency. Sometimes we really help out with a lot of kind of strategic planning and content strategies. And, you know, I'm someone who is passionate about strategy, even just that, you know,
yes, I remember that.
Without a proper plan, I just feel like, you know, everyone puts so much time and energy into doing something, and for it to not to deliver or land is so sad. And, you know, we're asking clients to invest in an area that is not their core. You know, like content is not at the core of every business. And even when they have some internal capacity, then they're unable to get outside the realms of what their own industry is sometimes. And so it's our job to make a good recommendation. And very often we start working with businesses who have no content. And it's absolutely our job to take them on the journey of understanding, you know, video can be expensive. And so why, you know, while video is absolutely important and it's certainly something that everyone needs to get comfortable with, the different ways that you can manipulate video, some people can't afford it straight up, or they might need to look at it in a different way for it to be feasible, until they start to understand the true value of content, and content that is used in the right place at the right time to get the right result. So yeah, we're often taking clients on a journey of understanding, and then from us as a business as well. This shifts all the time as well. Like, you know, what's really important is the journey and what the user, what the audience needs, and that changes all the time. If you look at the world in the last 3 months,
oh my goodness,
who could it, like, literally everything has changed of how people want to consume content and where it is and all of that. So while clients are on a constant learning, you know, trajectory, so are we.
Right. You mentioned like you use a lot of freelancers. I know that News Corp has I want to call it the swimming pool. It's not the swimming pool. It's the pool.
The pool.
Pool of people.
Does that apply to Suddenly, or are you a bit more open to freelancers contacting you, or do they have to be part of that pool in order to get work?
So the reality is that basically it depends on what the discipline is. So there is a pool, and the pool is there to protect freelancers so that they don't sit at a desk all day, every day, and look like a permanent kind of part-time worker and not get the superannuation and all the stuff they need. So, so for things like subs and designers and those kinds of things, there is some reality around what that looks like. And if you are in the building, you need to be covered by things like OH&S and all that. So that's sort of why the pool exists, to actually protect the freelancers. So from a design and subbing and kind of sitting at a monitor type space, we absolutely are beholden by some of those things. However, I say that, and that was months ago. Now I genuinely don't know what that looks like. What does a pool look like when there's no pool to swim in? And then the other thing is, as far as like freelance journalists or producers or things that are project driven or they're a one-off type thing, we can activate whoever we like. They just need to
that's
able to invoice us and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's really good news. So in terms of content writers, because I suppose a lot of our listeners fall into that area, what kind of skills are you looking for someone to do the job? I know that I've been called on to do everything from project manage infographics and write all the little pieces and then project manage it with a designer, to writing listicles, to writing content pieces, to doing social that goes along with those content pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, what are all the key skills that you're really looking for someone to have?
Well, that's what it looks like, Rach, right? Like, I mean, there are definitely some commonalities, but for me, what I probably look for in any kind of content creator is a desire to be a bit flexible and to understand actually this, even what I think might be the project at the beginning, it might move as well. So, to be a bit flexible and to figure out what it's worth. Like if you're a freelancer who needs very kind of clear guidelines and that sort of stuff, you can let me know that and I'll just make sure that I put you on a job that looks like that, because there are those jobs. But if you're someone who's up for the ride, let me know, because it's great. It's nice to be with someone who's sort of interested in the kind of like, also when someone else is in the detail of the doing with you, it's really awesome for them to come back with some suggestions of actually, I think this could be a thing based on the objective you've given me. Actually, I do think that here's some other ways it might be social, and if you ever get there, how good would a video like this be? So that is so helpful, because I don't know, it's hard to it's hard to generate ideas all day, every day. And someone I work with is actually really, he articulates it really well. He's like, ideas are a dime a dozen on the corner. It's actually being able to articulate them and follow them through and execute them that's actually the hard bit.
Yes.
Which I kind of love.
Yeah, it's true.
What about say journalists who come to you and they don't even know what metadata is, or how to fill in, all those little bits and pieces that are often part of a content template that you're given, or you might be told to go to a CMS and you've got to fill in 20 so little pieces as well as your copy. I mean, what do you think? Do you train people, or do you expect them to have some grounding in that stuff?
Yeah, look, that again, and I will put my hand up and say, I don't know how to do everything. That is absolutely not my background. So all I really ask of people is that they're honest about, what their levels of what their levels of understanding in all those areas are. We certainly have people on our team who are able to help 100%. We have digital specialists and we have other areas, and we give templates which do help them understand exactly what and the purpose of how, to articulate meta descriptions and all that kind of stuff. So, in an ideal world, the people that we work with, I will have had some kind of conversation with, as either through a kind of Hangout or a Zoom or something, so we can get a bit of a sense of who we are, because just commissioning someone that you've never met through an email, I don't think often is the right way to get a really great outcome. So we do certainly want to invest in the people that we work with, and we want to be able to have a chat. And as far as transferable skill sets and all of that, I think the one thing I would say is video is this huge area of content creation. And sometimes the kind of editorial world of words and kind of journalistic area, sometimes it's unclear how that does actually inform the video production area. And I just think that, I look at a lot of people who create content, a lot of journalists and editors. They have this incredible intelligence around story arc and being able to craft a story. And I think that there's some real opportunity to be to really understand how a story arc and how stories come to life in a video format. Because I think that often there's a lot of focus on the production element of videos and what process for that looks like. And sometimes I don't know, I just think that if journalists and writers and editors can get better at how we move that into a video space, I think that the world of opportunity is going to be much broader.
That sounds like a masterclass.
It does.
It does.
Yeah, Rachel's look.
And it's great. It is. It's so exciting. And, there's very clear, I think when you've been a journalist or in that space, and this is very much my world at the moment, is that, I've always been around video, but I really, now that I'm working with people who are just incredible craftsmen in that space, it's very, there are very clear swim lanes in production and how one works alongside each other. But I do think that with that, there's a real way for editors and journalists and storytellers to be in the video side of things more comfortably.
How would you say that they could move into that? Is it more being able to write video scripts and that sort of thing?
There's scripts. There's a lot of the upfront pre-production space of actually manipulating the story arc and understanding. And it is a very different language. Like the language of editorial is very different from video production. And so sometimes you expose yourself, myself included, is that you don't necessarily always speak exactly the same language. So a bit of investment in understanding what video production terminology and language and all of that looks like, and actually what each of the crafts in that area do and why they do it. I think it will help if you do a bit of education in that area will help people in the editorial space understand if they want to be in that area, actually which area do they want to be and how could they fit into that. And I think that's really rich territory.
Oh, it's interesting. And do you feel, what about sort of some of those emerging technologies like virtual reality and things like that? Is that something
so exciting? Yeah, I mean, there's so much in that. I mean, if we talk about just virtual events, I mean,
yes. Well, we're all living. Do you think
I know that's a very steep learning curve we're all on at the moment. So, and it's incredible, right? I mean, it's so exciting. I that's why I love it. I think that. Really honestly, in my previous world of kind of magazine and print and stuff, you kind of are a little bit hamstrung by budget. I do talk about that. There's no one more frugal than an editor, because they make a small amount of money go a very long way. And look, that's obviously the reality of the world at the moment. But and it's not to say that I'm not still frugal in my current world, but there is a really big. There's just, I don't know, it just feels a bit more blue sky to me. Like I love the fact.
Do you think there's a bigger propensity to invest into good content on the corporate side?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is directly related to a consumer in a way that sometimes editorial brands are not.
There's a real return on investment.
There's a very clear conversation around ROI, and if you can prove it and you can make it happen. I mean, I think that you've got to have some pretty good you've got to have some pretty good examples to get something big like that off the ground. But that's part of working with a client, right? It's working with them, ticking some business box, understanding what their business objectives are, making sure you're ticking those boxes to prove yourself and get some points on the board, and then you can start to go, look, here are some other ways that I think are really meaningful, and like, what's the role of content for your business? It's not everywhere. Content is not the solution to everything. I hate to say it. It's important to understand what the role of content is for that business at any one time.
Can we be nice and positive to all the people who are thinking about freelancing?
Totally.
Because it's so exciting to hear you say that you're using freelancers, that you're growing and thriving.
And that work is out there. I mean, it's great to hear. I mean, so many journos who are finding themselves, being made redundant or suddenly having to face the prospect of overhauling their careers. I mean, what would be your advice for them? Or
I mean, look, I hate seeing that. Like it's this industry is something I'm so passionate about, and I feel so fortunate. I've been fortunate enough to be in an industry that's flexible enough for me to have a small child and be able to still do this job, which is pretty amazing. Like, it's not to say that, make no mistake, I'm not sure it's easy, and I don't do it well every day. I don't get the balance right every day, but it is. And so I do genuinely feel very grateful for an industry in that, if nothing else, media and publishing is very flexible, right? We cruise with the shifting sands of whatever's happening in industry. So for me, flexible businesses like ours, where we do activate a lot of freelancers, I see that as being an ongoing, that is what we're going to do. Like, as much as we absolutely want to grow big enough to have more people on staff, there will always be a need for me to have freelancers who specialize in different areas, or who are able, like, I need to have a vast tapestry, because I need people to turn things around quickly, because as opposed to in the magazine world or print world, I don't set my own deadlines now. I'm absolutely at the whim of a client. And if they want something quickly, there will be a certain amount of people who are able to do that. And that's a different kind of work. Like someone who can turn something around in 24 hours to 48 hours, that's a certain kind of work. If I need someone to craft an amazing story and do a lot of like looking for case studies and being out there, that's a different kind of person. So yeah. I think knowing what you do well and really delivering on that, for me, that's what I need from journalists. And I think that, and freelancers, and I don't think I'm ever not going to need that. No matter where I land, I think I'm still going to need that.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel and I are big fans of, well, both of us have really done a lot of content lately, and we see that is a more secure financial future for us. And I guess that's what I think our listeners are looking for as well.
Yeah.
While they still might do the odd bit of freelance journalism, what you're doing and what we do is probably the future of a lot of people who make money with their words.
And really truly, like some of the things that the content that we've created as a business lately is the most exciting stuff I've done in my whole life. Like it is so exciting how many different areas I get to be in. Like we were sort of saying, what does my day look like? And I went straight to the meetings, which is the truth. But what that looks like is meetings about different projects in different kinds of heads of craft. I work with the most talented group of people I've ever worked with. So broad, really interesting, very forward-thinking people who challenge me to think bigger than I ever have before. So like I've never felt as inspired or encouraged, creatively satisfied as I ever have.
Well, it does sound quite exciting and quite diverse too, which is really nice.
Diverse.
Amazing. That's really great to hear. I mean, if you had any final words for, journos who may be feeling, a bit down at the moment about their career or the future or anything, I mean, what would be any words of hope that you have for, in the broader picture of content marketing and finding work?
I think just know that content that really connects with an audience is just absolutely the way for any kind of person to communicate in a way that is more like there is a role for advertising and media. I'm not saying that there's not, because obviously I work for News Corp and it's a huge part of our business, but actually connecting and creating really great pieces of content that are able to be distributed and connect to an audience is literally what we're all after. That is what these amazing connected ecosystems of social and all the different ways that we can communicate. Content is still a way to connect with an audience, and really great content creators are just the key to that. Like, once we start getting into a space where we're not focusing on any of the craft of how we do that, I think we'll be in real trouble. So I genuinely think that the trend is always going to be towards really great pieces of content and really great creators, because that's how you talk to people.
Oh, that's so fantastic. It's so nice to hear. Thank you, Claire.
What are your views about what's happening with so many great digital brands going under? I mean, it's so heartbreaking to see that, but it
is. But you know what we've got? I genuinely think that, I don't know if I'm really honest, the industry is just in an it's just in a seismic shift at the moment, like, with massive players like Bauer and Pack and all of that sort of shifting, and news as well. I think that we are literally throwing all the puzzle pieces up in the air, and I think that while it's in the air, everything's going to feel a bit shit, a bit scary, because nothing, but I genuinely think that with some time, I think that the puzzle pieces are going to actually bed back down again, but I think it's going to look really different. I think that what we still have is an incredible group of creatives in Australia, and I'm not speaking across everywhere, but I do think that, we've got some incredible editors who, have moved lately, people that I just absolutely respect what they do, lots of content creators in every different discipline. And I think that when the pieces of puzzle all go back together again, I think it might be more meaningful. I feel quite positive as that people will find where they do what they do, as opposed to being kind of stuck to a legacy framework of traditional publishing models. Yeah. I do think that's exciting. I mean, our business,
it's forced people to reevaluate things.
It has. And look, my life shifted in a way that I had to reevaluate what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be didn't work as much as being, a magazine editor was, a complete highlight of my career and something I never thought I'd do. So very grateful for the opportunity. It just didn't suit my lifestyle. I didn't want to be out at events every night. I needed to find a way to have a family. I needed to, like I said, I didn't like being the spokesperson for anything. I just want to do the thing. Yeah. So I moved into Suddenly because it was a real shift in what my work-life balance would look like. And while I have less control because we're client-driven, I have more control in that I just do it differently. I'm not on this treadmill of a monthly thing. And I don't know, I like the fact that it is more diverse. And, yeah, I think that actually crushing the framework a bit hopefully will allow us all to find a new way to do it. And I think we probably need that.
Yeah.
We were it's a bit death by a million cuts. Like, you want to keep the dream alive of creating these amazing things, but without the budget and without the kind of freedom to do it. So there are brands who are still doing it really well, and I absolutely commend them because they still have an incredibly high level of polish and productivity and efficiencies that is really incredible. It's just, I think there's different ways to do it too. We really do.
Yep.
And it's not until you kind of let the idea of that go. You kind of have to let it go okay, that whole definition of insanity of don't do the same thing thinking that you can get a different outcome. Like, you have to think of different ways to do it. And I think with such a big shift in the industry, I think you're right. I think that what comes with that, though, for so many of us who especially started in mags is just this real grief and heartbreak, because I feel that too, Rach. Yeah. Honestly, I do. I look at the people who are affected at the moment, and I truly do feel just so disappointed in many things about what's happened, how it's happened, all of those kinds of things.
And the same thing for the papers as well, the regional and rural papers and all those journos that are now, facing a real career overhaul. Maybe it will be in content. He's hoping we'll see where the chips fall.
Yeah, because incredible talent. Please let it fall into our area and find a way for us to be able to work with it again, because there's so many talented people started in regional papers.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing so much wisdom and all your insights about.
So great to have you, Brad. Shall we say that does bring us to the end of the show this week?
It does.
Thank you to everyone who's been listening and sharing us on social media, because we've picked up quite a few new listeners in the last couple of weeks, and it's been great. So if you like the show, don't forget to leave us a rating and a review on iTunes and Stitcher. And because the reviews give us warm fuzzies, don't they, Rach?
And they do.
Find us.
Yes. And don't forget to head over to rachelslist.com.au/blog to grab the show notes for this episode. Thank you again, Claire Bradley.
No problem.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
See you all next week. Bye.
Bye.